Well, 2 days after he was almost killed at a campaign rally, former President Trump making an appearance on the floor of the Republican National Convention. Thanks for joining us here at 11. I'm Chris Jacobs.
And good evening to you. I'm Cherie Palello. President Trump had a bandage on his ear after being grazed by that bullet on Saturday. As you can imagine, the room filled with thousands and thousands of supporters just went crazy, chanting and cheering, as you just heard there, USA, USA for their nominee. Now, WLWT News anchor Mike Dardis is live for us in Milwaukee tonight. He was there for the big celebration this evening. We're going to talk with him in a minute. But first, our John London has much more here in studio on today's big vice presidential pick. And John, this is huge for Ohio.
Well, big for Ohio, and it's a big night at the Republican convention, big night for J.D. Vance, who we know and who we have interviewed many times. This election could come down to who can best relate to voters in key battleground states, which is one reason Vance was selected by Donald Trump. He hails from impoverished rural small-town America, Middletown, during the fading steel mill era. Vance is expected to connect well with states that have demographic similarities to Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Democrats consider them part of their blue firewall. Vance intends to bust through with his hillbilly elegy backstory, a secure border message, and an America First mindset. Part of what we heard tonight is how even though Vance wore a white collar as a venture capitalist, he hasn't lost his blue collar touch.
He's a guy that came from that world. He's going to make certain that the Republican Party stands with them. That's what this nomination means. Couldn't be more proud of J.D. Vance.
Have you had conversations with him in recent days or weeks about this process?
You know, other than to wish him the best of luck, you know, obviously his entire life has been turned upside down, but he's a great man. He's a fighter like President Trump is.
And expect to hear that word fighter a lot. There's another word that's being bandied about in the aftermath of the attempted assassination over the weekend: unity. Democratic Congressman Greg Landsman represents the congressional district Vance lives in. Landsman took note today how Vance tweeted that rhetoric from Democrats led directly to the gunfire on Saturday, that Vance is more of a flamethrower than a unifier. That is how the Biden campaign intends to describe Vance, someone who they say plays to the extreme elements of the hard Republican right. So here's Landsman tonight on why he considers Vance too divisive to be a heartbeat away.
The 700,000 people I represent, including Mr. Vance, they come first. You know, what I know to be true, and Mr. Vance doesn't agree with this, the vast majority of folks here want their democracy strengthened. They want freedom restored, and they want an economy that's built for them, not billionaires.
Speaking of big money, Vance has shown that he can raise money. He's a good fundraiser, and he is in tight with the Trump family, having formed a fast friendship with Donald Trump Jr. He's also someone regarded in Republican circles as the type of skilled debater to outshine Vice President Kamala Harris when they engage in the one and only vice presidential debate. It was Trump's endorsement of Vance 2 years ago that propelled him to the Senate nomination over other Republican contenders, so he's been a part of Trump's orbit ever since. He's a freshman senator holding his very first political office. To call him a rising Republican star right now might be severely understating it. Here's someone who's known him for a decade.
We were law school classmates, actually. And to see him now in this position, I'm not only incredibly proud of him, but I'm grateful for the country. And I think he's going to be, I think the Trump-Vance ticket will be the single most formidable ticket of our lifetime.
78-year-old at the top of that ticket with a 39, soon-to-be 40-year-old to round it out. Middletown's own J.D. Vance, who once wrote in his memoir, what separates the successful from the unsuccessful are the expectations that they had for their own lives. His expectation in 2024 is that he'll be number 2 in the White House once the votes are counted in November. John London, WLWT News 5.
All right, John, thanks so much for that report. So a big night in Milwaukee tonight for J.D. Vance, and a surprise appearance from former President Trump.
Yeah, WLWT anchor Mike Dardis is in Milwaukee at the RNC. He joins us live now from the scene. Mike.
Hi there, Chris, and hi there, Cherie. Yeah, what a difference. About 5 or 10 minutes can make this place emptied out in a hurry, but it was an energized Republican crowd tonight, a place filled with red as former President Donald Trump shows up alongside his running mate, now Ohio U.S. Senator J.D. Vance. And earlier today, of course, came that dramatic announcement. The mystery is finally over. We now know that it will be somebody from Ohio on the presidential ticket for the first time since 1980. Here was that announcement.
It is therefore my honor to nominate Ohio Senator J.D. Vance for the office of Vice President of the United States of America.
Yeah, quite a moment for J.D. Vance jumping into the Ohio delegation there, where it was all hugs and celebration. Only been in elected office now for 19 months, elected back in November of 22. Of course, growing up in Middletown, Ohio and rural Kentucky. Wrote the memoir, as John mentioned, called Hillbilly Elegy, that became a movie. And tonight, I spoke with Ohio's Lieutenant Governor Jon Husted, the man who made that announcement on the floor of the RNC.
It's great for Ohio because we're going to have one of our favorite sons sitting in the White House, which is an amazing thing. It just opens up so many doors to make sure that Ohio issues are going to be heard by the people at the top of our federal government.
And what about you getting to make that announcement today?
Yeah, I learned about an hour earlier. They said, hey, can you come help us with something? And I said, sure. And they took me backstage and said, we need you to nominate J.D. Vance to become the vice president. And I said, I'm in. Tell me what to do. And we put together a speech, and I was happy to nominate him.
Listen, there's a lot to dive into as we spend the entire week here in Milwaukee. Like, how did J.D. Vance go from an enemy of Donald Trump to suddenly his number one man and his running mate? But we'll get to all that later this week, because tonight was all about the party. It was all about the big party. And I went down to the Ohio delegation on the floor, and I spoke with everybody from sheriffs to the head of the Ohio Republican Party to just average everyday delegates.
We're very proud of him. We're very, very happy that he's on the ticket. And I've known him for quite a few years, and I'm just really happy that he's on the ticket. Very happy. He's very qualified.
Big day. Really excited about J.D. Vance, Ohio's own, Middletown born and raised, self-educated through his own bootstraps, and it's a victory for Kentucky and for Ohio.
We're ecstatic, Mike. This is a historic day for Ohio. You know, we're from Cincinnati, and so is J.D. Vance. He's a Cincinnati, and he came back home, you know, more than a decade ago. I've known him since then, so we're ecstatic. J.D. Vance is exactly the guy.
Makes me proud. When you can come from his background, a poor guy, a rough family, and he can raise all the way up to being on that stage with Donald Trump, it's an American story.
And here are some of the sights and sounds from the floor of the RNC here in Milwaukee as I walked around with my photojournalist Grover Tadlock. Most Republicans telling me tonight they thought it was a great way to kick things off, and they're looking forward to the big speeches, of course, coming up later this week with J.D. Vance on Wednesday night and former President Donald Trump addressing the nation on Thursday night. Both Wednesday and Thursday NBC live coverage of the RNC here in Milwaukee. And I got to tell you, security, something else, just from even when you're several blocks outside of the arena, and then when you get to the arena, bomb-sniffing dogs, cars, you know, you have to open up the car and have people search the car, and all kinds of things, as you can imagine, after what happened to former President Trump in western Pennsylvania on Saturday, where he nearly lost his life. So we're going to be here all week. Tomorrow we plan to dive right into the streets in Milwaukee and kind of get the flavor of what's going on outside the convention, more on the security, more of the speeches, and more of some of the critical questions that you want answered back there in Cincinnati. For now, reporting live at the RNC in Milwaukee, Mike Dardis, WLWT News 5.